Hey there, it's Ben from patternprofits.net bringing you the weekly watch list. We are looking at the cues here. Only a week and a half ago, we were talking about clearing this descending trend line and trying to get a trend reversal over that 324.20 level. And now here we are almost testing new highs. 338.19, the level to watch on the cues, has been a rocket ship after clearing that descending trend line. But for most of us in the growth sector, we're still not making a whole lot of progress on small cap growth. We've got this descending trend line. We need to see a similar type move in the IWO, the Russell growth, if we're going to make some progress on the growth side of the equation. Anchored VWAP off of the high here, still acting as resistance along with the descending trend line. The 10 MA did act as support last week. You've got the 20 just above and the 50-65 above that. Volume shelf, point of control a little bit higher too. That would need to be reclaimed. So we need to see this make the turn, and then you've got this level of importance, 320.14, if we can take out the descending trend line. As far as individual stocks, still made some progress, but gotta really be a good stock picker because it hasn't been like everything is getting a lift. Futu acted well last week though, reclaimed anchored VWAP off of the high. Didn't make a whole lot of progress after Thursday's gain, but you have a nice inside day there right up against the volume shelf point of control. Descending trend line has been broken. You've got a pivot above at 169.38. We can push through that level, look for a run to the prior highs at 204 and a quarter. SI, another one. You're going to see that a lot of these look similar with the descending trend lines kind of dancing just below that level, descending trend line here. Anchored VWAP off of the high and off of the gap did provide support as we discussed last week. Volume shelf point of control just below, so we'll look to see if we can break through the descending trend line there and give a run back towards those prior highs near 188. Much will depend on how Bitcoin acts because SI tends to follow the pattern in Bitcoin. You've got kind of a VCP look to this one. Let me here we go. See if we can get back above that 60,000 mark. You had kind of this triangle formation came out. Like I said, kind of a VCP look to it. Where these cup bases get a little bit more shallow, a little sloppy up at the top, but coming out of that descending trend line off of the high there, see if it can make a run to those prior highs, depending on the action here. That'll probably guide you with what happens with SI. RADA, another one we covered last week. This one made good progress last week, had a good move late in the week, especially after it squatted on Monday. This was, quite a move early in the day. Almost came up and tagged that target up at 1480 and rolled over late in the session. Did clear the 1345 pivot when it broke this descending trend line. But the good thing was late in the week it did recover quite well. So now you look and see if it can push through that 1480 prior high, maybe come up, flag out a bit, form a handle, and then push through. But something worth watching. You've got quite a few of these set up the same way. HIMX was another one I highlighted last week. Pins is one that we'll be watching too. This one not really actionable here, but what I want to see is how it acts if it does get up near this prior high, 89.90. Potential market leader, so I want to see if it can come up, tag those prior highs there, maybe form a handle there, or if the market should get hot, especially like I was showing with the IWO, maybe growth gets a lift and this can push right through that prior highs. Certainly something we want to keep an eye on next week as kind of a proxy for growth and leadership stocks. GrowG, another one. This one actually is actionable. descending trend line off of the high, reclaimed on Thursday, anchored VWAP off of the high. You had the volume shelf point of control right there. You also had real tight power of 3 setup with the 10, the 20, and the 50 all coiled there. You have an inside day on Friday to work with, so this is a excellent setup into early next week. I also have KRNT. This one more of a power earnings gap setup. You had the big gap back here with the nice volume on the earnings. Anchored VWAP acting as resistance, and then now we've cleared that level, pushed back above back above the volume shelf, and looking to see if this can now turn that anchored VWAP up and make some progress towards those prior highs. Near 125 would be a good first target. I also have LPRO. We talked about this one last week. This one's still working within the base and a little sloppy here, but what I like is that strong recovery late on Friday, reclaimed anchored VWAP off of the high. Volume shelf point of control is right there too. What I want to see is if this can make some progress, make the turn, this actually turn out to be the swing low, and then make a run up here towards those prior highs at 43. So still basing action, but this big volume candle here on this secondary, that was priced at 34, and we've still held that level nicely. So this is an entry that can be kept really tight if you're trying to get in early ahead of a breakout above 43. I've also got, going back into the Bitcoin and cryptos, I'm going to see how MARA, M-A-R-A, acts around this pivot. 49.78, cleared it and has kind of been dancing around it. Come in to want to see if this can hold this level and start to push higher and make some progress there. I also have another setup I really like into next week is Twitter. You had power earnings gap back here, big volume. You had another one with big volume back here. And now we've reclaimed that anchored VWAP off of that gap. If you add one off the high, you're above that too, I bet. Yes, above anchored VWAP, off of the high, off of the gap. You have a pivot here, kind of a double bottom pattern here, shakeout here. We always like to see the right side of the double bottom base shake out. You have a 71.86 pivot and an inside day here to work with. So another good quality setup into next week. And through 71.86, logical target, those prior highs 80.75. Like to see it come up here, pull back and form a handle, and then potential breakout after that. There's still a couple of ideas from last week that remain valid, like UNFI, which had a nice reclaim of anchored VWAP off of the high early last week, but then kind of went sideways the rest of the week, but did hold that level. So UNFI, one from last week's watch list that still remains valid, as well as NARI, same type of setup, anchored VWAP off of the high and off of the gap, big volume back here, puts it on my radar. Did make the push through anchored VWAP, hasn't made a lot of progress yet, and an inside day here on Friday to work with. So for early in the week, that's all I have on the watch list. We'll see how it plays out. If anything should grab my attention, I will share it over on FinTwit as the week goes on. Hope you guys have a great trading week, and I will see you over on FinTwit.